Gentlemen, good afternoon. It's good to have you all on stage. You are welcome. And we cannot wait to dig into the questions that I have for you, but at the end of our session, hopefully we'll have a roving mic where we have the audience themselves actually ask you questions. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Rego. I hope you are ready to speak to me about Fintech in the Kingdom of Eswatini and how you assess the current state of Fintech, first and foremost in the Kingdom, and how do you assess innovation in the country? You are part of the Innovation Association. Where do you think we are in the Kingdom?
First of all, let me just take this moment to greet everyone. I have to bring my volume down. I appreciate being up here. It's not by design, it's a blessing to be here. And I'm honored to be sharing the stage with the gentleman that I'm with here. To the question on Fintech, I think I'll start with where I come from and how I'm into the Fintech space. My story started in 2015 when I was standing in a line at the revenue office down there by Majaha. And I spent 3 hours in a government queue trying to pay for a driver's license application. And in that 3 hours, I realized that everybody in the queue was there to pay. And I counted the amount of time they were spending trying to pay government for a service that they needed. On average, it was 3 hours per person. And that moment was uncomfortable because I was holding my phone and I thought, why are we in a queue when we have phones and yet we're coming to pay for a public service? And when I realized that that was what everyone was going through, I did some numbers. The math was, if the minimum wage is 1.5, 2,000 per hour per person, how many hours are we spending here in all these queues? And if the revenue office down there has 100 people in a given time span, how many revenue offices are in the country? How much money is the economy losing from reproductive waste that people are spending in queues trying to pay for? So that was, to me, the moment that I thought something different has to be done about this. I wish I could end the story by saying, fast forward, now we're here, the rest is history. We are still in that history today. It's not a rosier future. We are still standing in queues trying to pay. The only difference now is we have made some leaps forward in mobile payments. We have Momo Pay, which is currently the only platform that's really dominant in the space. And there's still a very huge vacuum for other locally owned, youth-led and driven solutions to make payments easier. I think that's the space or the area of focus I think we would rather get into. And that speaks to what exactly is lacking in our ecosystem and innovation per se. So I've been doing tech since I graduated from this university. I'm happy to be home as I work and live here. However, the biggest challenge for innovators in this country is that we operate and live in silos. The siloism is that every time we'll have an event, such as today's or any other event, and we have these grand solutions we're going to present on stage, we'll walk out of the event after taking pictures and having nice snacks, finger foods, and we'll go back to our offices and little corners, and we'll never pick up the phone to say, how do we get started on that project or that idea? That's where my pain point is, and that's my agenda. The siloism is what's really holding us back. Mr. Banks just mentioned that we have a grand opportunity as 1.2 million people to capitalize on that ease of cultural homogeneity. We are 90%, 99% the same culture, the same language, the same ethnicity, give or take. That's an advantage that is actually working against us if we are not capitalizing on it. So I'll just open my segment on that part, Mr. Dlamini.
So there's movement, but it's slow movement, right? So Mr. Nkambule, I'll bring you into that. what do you think are some of the significant challenges that fintechs and innovators have outside of maybe working in silos in the kingdom that is making the movement slow?
Okay, thank you so much. Again, we truly appreciate the opportunity to be here. I think some of the challenges that we face as startups, fintech startups basically, is funding, especially in Eswatini. We do have the ideas. We do have institutions who try to assist as well in terms of funding. But I think there's still a gap in that space as well. I think also we are not aware of opportunities. We are not aware of opportunities. So I think those are the key things that I would really want for us to address, hopefully, in this session. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I hear the funding piece. I happen to have a relationship with one of the banks in the kingdom, so we should engage them and find out how they can help us.
Please do.
Around that funding. Mr. Ndlandla, I want to bring you in from you co-founded a business, so you're an entrepreneur and you're running it now. From a regulation perspective, I mean, Mr. Banks was saying earlier there to say, can we influence government? But what do you think government, could assist us from a regulation point of view, from a policy point of view, to make maybe some of the challenges less of challenges?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. And I'm sitting next to the guys we've been hustling this way from the ground and coming up here, and it's good to share the platform together. So what I've picked is that the central bank really is trying to level the ground, because as entrepreneurs we need the ground to be a level for us to be able to bring those innovations. And the central bank creating that sandbox, I think it was one step that really government is showing that it's intentional, that they want to help young people bring innovation into their space. And you find that as young people, I think one thing we're struggling with is compliance. Really, compliance is a struggle. If there are people who can really sitting here thinking and how they can help upcoming innovators on how to comply, because this is our biggest downfall. So we have these big regulation frameworks being developed, but as innovators, basically, we took technical, basically, to understand these things and to apply in innovations. So I think if we can have a way whereby these big frameworks, we come into this space as entrepreneurs or as innovators, so we come and try and understand basically what does it mean and how can I align so that I can comply with the government. So we have brilliant ideas, and as Jose mentioned, that we sit on our space, we develop this solution, and you find that it does not comply with the current status quo of the country. So I think that's where we can start with young people. Let us build while we comply and make use of these resources that the central bank has made available for us to use. So be able to, before we test it in the market, we already know it complies with the regulatory framework of the country.
You just brought in something very interesting there, the sandbox that was created by the Central Bank of Eswatini, and of course, the element of compliance, which is very big, especially in the financial space. So if you're going to go into fintech, you must comply, because people's monies, are very sensitive issues here. But I want to probe you further. I didn't know about the sandbox until I worked with a young entrepreneur some 3 months ago who's in the fintech space, and we went to the central bank and I found out about that. Do you think that the available resources are marketed enough or shared enough with young people such that they actually have access to that information?
Yeah, I don't know if from our end if it's ignorant from our end, or really even the central bank is not open enough up there to say, come, this is open for the public, you can come and you can use it. I think we lack the capacity on that end. We need to build that capacity so we can start believing and be confident to say this solution really that we are bringing to the market really is gonna serve the market, because you don't want to bring something and the following day you have an office now taking complaints of your solution now that there are gaps and breaches out there. So I think we, as young people, we have the potential to have the capacity if there can be intentions to build the capacity within those young people here.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to bring you into the conversation now, Mr. Banks. Jose says there's movement, but it's slow from an innovation perspective in the kingdom. Mr. Nkambule here says we've got a big funding issue, where young people have got great ideas, but they don't have the funds to actually start their businesses. And then Mr. Ndlandla brings in the element of just the sandbox environment where they can actually test their ideas. And it brings in also the issues of compliance. These are challenges and opportunities. It's a very good mix of that. When you spoke earlier, you said young people have access to some of the leaders, because you made an example, the minister was here. It's not true maybe in other territories in Africa. Now, these are the young people, they do have the access. I'd love to ask you practically on how do they get themselves, first and foremost, onto the table? Because seeing him at an event is different from engaging him at an ideas sort of level. But also now getting there and being able to move a conversation to a point where a minister or any person of influence would be able to solve any of these problems. Could be funding, could be the compliance issues, or any other solution. How do you help these young people move out of here, not only with the confidence to have the conversation, but with practical skills of how to get it over the line?
Thank you so much. I think, if I'm honest with you, because I've been walking the journey, there are multiple reasons why it's like that, and let's allow the government to be where they are. Firstly, I would say that collaboration is key. Because let's say he's a software, he's technical, maybe with finance, he's a lawyer. If you work together, you can produce one powerful product. Silos is the results of this, because let's say you're an engineer, should I expect you to know policies? Even you are not interested. That is what, it's not that you are not aware, it's that it's not your field. Bring someone who can do that in collaboration. I don't know how that looks like, but be open enough to bring that. That's what facilitates a movement. Secondly, no government is going to pick you and say, we're going to help you. There's thousands of people. What you need to do is to build your product and build momentum on it. Build momentum. Let people start using it. 1, 2, 3. Partner with whoever you can partner with, but don't be restricted to getting your own license. As you start, I'm telling you, that's where others call you. Can we partner with you, Momo? Can we give you a license? That's where they give you a license. And then when you start talking about Bitcoin and other things, you can become now the forefront here of it. From what I'm hearing, it's slow because no one is there. You have to build it up. It has to be fast. And then the policies, the ones that are there, there's no one who has challenged them. Which tool is challenging them? I'm part of policy now on e-commerce and fintech, and they had to put me there because of what I'm doing. But they don't want me. When I'm there, I do not speak for them. I speak for me. And that's what we need to be doing. Build a momentum on a product that nobody can ignore. The fact that there's no speed point machines around here. Yep. No, we can't have one. There's no way. There's no way.
So in essence, your product will get you to the table.
The market is there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I get it. Now, hypothetically, we solve all of these problems, gentlemen. Let's now speak about adoption and inclusion. That's like digital adoption in the kingdom, where we've got fintechs that have been created already in the country. Some are owned by banks, but some are standalone. So they exist. You keep on mentioning Momo because Momo is one of the biggest, in the country. There's a lot of innovation happening. I know that in your different spaces, you've created applications and you've worked in the innovation space in the kingdom. How is the digital adoption? Jose, I'm going to bring this one to you. Do you think Swazis are taking up the digital innovations that are being created by other Swazis?
So the first time I saw a mobile app on Google Play Store was in 2015-16. And I remember looking at the application as I installed it. It was like find a mechanic. So you get the app, you start looking for mechanics around you. And it didn't have a great user interface, and the experience was still wonky. So people didn't really use it for those reasons. But the feedback that the reviews were collecting in the review section were positive. So that said, local consumers are interested in local products. That's the first caveat I'd like to start with. We are interested in locally built products, even if it means taking something that's substandard and saying, we like this, just keep going. The only challenge is, when you look at the adoption of products, you have the innovators who will be the first to get your app and say, I like it, keep going, here's my feedback, fix it. The only challenge is, it comes back to Mr. Nkambule's point here. Once you have the adoption of the innovators who have positive feedback for you, moving from the innovators to the early adopters now requires real capital. So to take the feedback you've been given by the innovators, which is like a very great starting point with the little money you bootstrapped with by selling t-shirts, to go to the next stage of now getting the early adopters to say, we love it, just fix two more things. That's where the breaking point begins. So we see a dip in all the apps online that are made by locals. They move up and they dip at that point of adoption. I haven't seen, and I'm also a victim to this, a startup building an application going above the early adoption stage to then go into the main market. That hasn't happened because we lack the capital to cross that chasm, if the marketing students here understand that. So the problem with now when you have the early adoption is there's functionalities you need to now improve on, there's quality assurance you have to ensure, the app has to be really, really great for everybody else, and you're not going to get that through bootstrapping all the way. So those are the little barriers that didn't stop us. One, yes, we are interested in local products, but beyond a certain point, then we want it to really work. Yeah. It can't be, oh, it's cute and I like it. It must now really work for me to use it every day. And the capital for that really needs to be solved amongst ourselves.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So it must be practical, must solve a real problem. We must be able to use it to solve some of these real problems. Msuthu, there's a challenge of inclusion now. We're building apps for smartphones. You know, most of our fintechs maybe do have USSD that you can use, with any other phone. But now, do you think there's an inclusion, or how can we close the inclusion gap in as far as these digital innovations that we have in the kingdom? We've got a very young population. Mr. Banks has pointed that out. But do they have access? How can they be included in this revolution?
Okay, thank you so much, Nkosi. I honestly think we need to start developing for inclusion. The minute you develop something, make sure you're not just developing an app, but you need to make sure you cover everyone. The elderly, the young, those who are in the rural areas. So basically, it's just to position our mindset as developers that we have to be inclusive in what we're developing, and that actually brings a whole different market that you did not know. Yeah. We have, maybe just to share a bit, in the past 3 months, we've went to Ndlandla centers in the country. We met a lot of different people who we actually got to see a different market that we have not tapped in. But those people, they are not used to mobile apps. They're not used to these things, but they are there in the market in terms of financing. They actually are participating in the finances, but they are not included. So I think what we have to do is to change our mindset in terms of development. of our systems, of our solutions. We've had an agent network of more than 2,000 agents on the ground through what we've developed, through what we've built. And the reception is very huge. So I think we have to really just change our mindset in terms of inclusion.
Yeah, I like that you bring in the elderly.
Yeah.
You know, they should also be a part of this journey because they're active participants in this economy. Say we fix all of that hypothetically, you know, because we will reach a world like that where we fix all of these things. These digital innovations, especially in the fintech space, Mr. Ndlandla, bring a big risk in as far as security is concerned. And because this is online and it's digital, you can't hire physical security. How can we ensure that as we develop and as we include and as we solve some of our problems and now live in the digital space, especially financially, we're seeing this every day, that Eswatini are susceptible to some of these either cybersecurity threats or just even scammers out there. How do we close that loop in that regard so that people, yes, develop, but they don't lose while they develop?
Thank you, PhD. I think these are some of the conversations basically we need to take to the young people at high school thinking about career, what to do next, so that they can change their thinking when they, in terms of skills that they need to acquire. So these are the kind of skills, the future skills that they need. So with everyone thinking digital, data going, or big data, so yeah, there's a big opportunity for digital police. So, so the future skills on how this data can be secured, I think it's a huge gap also for Eswatini. And looking at the Rural Science and Technology Park, the data centers, really they are well positioned to drive this kind of discussion really on how we can secure the national data repository that everyone wants to fit into. So on my end, I think let's start thinking about the skills that we need to build capacity on before we can now start rolling it out to say this is how data should be secured.
Yeah. So skills development.
Skills development, yes. Let's focus on developing those skills because the time will come, like you're saying, we're discussing about the time will come, and let us not be surprised when the time comes. Let us find ourselves ready, having those skills so that we minimize outsourcing, because as a country we do not have the capacity. I think that's where international speakers comes in, people who can then come and share the skills with us, so we build the local capacity to be able to drive, because we better understand what we have as a country.
Yeah. And it's interesting that we're living in a time now where you can learn almost anything for free. You know, the same data that we use on social media could be used actually for real practical skills that we could come and even sell, you know, in the country. Mr. Banks, from a cybersecurity and consumer protection space, you already run digital innovation businesses, fintech businesses. What have you seen as big threats for you in your businesses, but also for your consumers? And also, what are the opportunities that we have to close some of those gaps?
The biggest security problem, your cloud platform must be sitting on a very secure platform, and unfortunately, our countries are not building, we're not building our own data centers. So they are sitting on international platforms, which means our data is exposed. Platforms like our e-commerce platform, very much running on real time, needs to run very fast, but also needs to be highly secured because it's got thousands of people transacting and their balances are there. You don't want to lose any balance. People are withdrawing every day, they're transacting, also the buying. On the fintech, I have the same challenge with these guys, same. But the reason I am trying to approach it different is that if you approach it like that, it stays like that. I had to go get a bank to back me. I got NetBank to back my banking license. So because of that, all the transactions are sitting on the merchant bank of NetBank. If anything loses Nedbank, it's not me. And I know that is not innovating everything, but we don't, how best can you protect people's money?
Yeah.
And because I'm backed by Nedbank, now we are going through the process of me offering bank cards from my merchant bank, because I've got a merchant bank. It's like a bank within a bank.
Yeah.
And on fintech transactions, all of them that are coming, they are safely secured in that machine. So transactions from sweet card machines, that's fine. Yeah, but that's where now you need to innovate. That's why the capital comes in. But I want to say that there are different types of funders that I've met. There's a funder who only focus on growth funding. Others are just grant funding, whatever. But growth funding want to see how much have you done. If you haven't done nothing, then I'm telling you, you'll think they don't like you. So that's why I'm trying to avoid. Just do that minimum sample, 3,000, 5,000 using. You've got enough to track this thing works. Then they've got early stage startups and seed investors. A seed investor, somebody's going to give you that money. He wants to see where's the money. If I'm going to put 5 million, where? So it's almost like you are building an example of how the money will come before it comes. That's why if you approach it like we don't have investment, you can stop now because there's no money. But here's how I approached it. I know I'm answering the other part, but with what you have now, who else can you partner with now that can take you to stage 2? Because stage 2 can attract early stage investor, seed investor, or growth investor. Another thing is that which bank is there that can give you this? That you see that they need to go to market, but they can't go to market. You will be their go-to market and you grow together.
Yeah.
That is it. If one bank agrees, you are in. That's what happened to me. And then you see me talking Old Mutual. I went to Old Mutual. They've got a product called SME Go. SME Go is a growing product for professionals. It's an accounting system that allows them to track for funds, to give funding, and also cash advance. But on the ground, they are not able to attract people to use this tool. I said, I've got a database. I've got all data. How many people do you want? I've got all of them. Here's what you must do. Buy me 1,000 speed points. And I'm going to make sure that everyone who's on that speed point is on your system. They bought me. They released the budget in 6 figures. Without paperwork, approval. They need their system to run. So innovation comes with that. How do you help that guy to help you connect with yours to move to stage 2? Because no one is coming to give you that money because you don't have a proof. And that is the difference. But in terms of security, let's not rely on ourselves when it comes to money. We are transacting a lot of, let me give you an example. One machine can make about 4,000 a day, 12,000 a day, one machine. We are now targeting 5,000 by the end of the year. We're sitting on, every day I'm stressing because settlements must happen the following day on the speed point. On e-commerce, people withdraw anytime they want, but there's a time where somebody can withdraw 50,000, takes from the merchant bank. You need to load it. All that is my problem. You need a brother to run this thing. You need a partner. Maybe you call me, we innovate together. That's what it is.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really interested in picking up on the data centers conversation, but I'll bring it back slightly later. I want to jump onto the funding one now because you just mentioned it, and I think it's quite pertinent, especially because Msutfu, you said it's one of the biggest challenges, or opportunities maybe that we have as a country. But I'm sitting with the 3 of you gentlemen here who are actually running some form of business in the kingdom. And I want to know from all of you now, who has funded you? And I'll start with you, Ndlandla, and go all the way down.
All right. I started eWorld immediately after tertiary. So from the savings I used in school, I registered eWorld. And
Yeah, you're on. You're on. Yeah.
all right. Yes, I registered eWorld from the savings from school, and then the first grant I got was from the US. The US embassy took me to the US, so there was a competition there. So when there's a competition, I always make sure I joined. So there was a business competition there. I joined that and I won a grant. And then coming back in Eswatini, there was a competition in Nigeria, 5,000 US. I joined that competition and I won. So that's how I kept up increasing my capital. But also the youth fund really did support us in 2018. But most of the money I've raised through competitions. So every competition with money I join in and I bring my A game.
Sorry, before you hand over the mic, you said growth fund. Who do you mean when you say growth fund?
Youth fund.
The youth fund.
Yeah, youth
all right.
yeah, revolving fund.
So the youth fund also, helped you there.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Unalo muthu ma competition. Akasicambidele phela abamendlandla ukuthi uthola kuphi. Yeah, but thank you, Jose.
So it's something similar to Mr. Ndlandla's here, but my start was bootstrapping. When I realized when we started that there isn't a VC network, La Eswatini, the next option was if you believe what you're doing is you bootstrap. Bootstrapping, for those that don't know, you basically pull up your shoelaces and you tighten them and you keep walking harder and faster by making use of the little things you can get along the way. That's the first one. And then as I was bootstrapping, it was easier to then raise some capital from friends and I'd say family, but like most of us, we don't come from very affluent backgrounds to borrow $1 million for your business. Yeah. So friends and mentors along the way have been very instrumental, and I do think we take for granted the mentor-mentee network opportunity that we can explore as far as investing in these concepts. And then I've also gone to competition. Tony Elumelu is one of them, 2019, 2020. And then ever since then, it's been side hustles, get a consultation, bring it into the business. Get a consultation, bring it into the business. Still part of bootstrapping. There's one point we did raise seed capital from a VC firm that was just starting La Eswatini at the time. Unfortunately, they were also just a startup funding firm, which also meant that bahamba baqine. So all models have been explored. The truth of the matter is you will get funding and still fail. Funding doesn't mean you're going to get funded and then succeed. You'll get funding and then your model will not be quite right and you'll fail, but you get up and you try a different model and then until it works out.
So a lot of self-funding by the bootstrapping?
Yes.
Was that the biggest chunk of the funding that you basically had?
80% is bootstrapping and self-funding. 10% has been mentorship and friends. And then the other 10% is competitions like Mr. Ndlandla. But majority has been self-belief.
Okay. I'm going somewhere with this, Msuthu.
Thank you so much. I think with this gentleman, we have a similar background in terms of funding. Okay, first for me, I started with my scholarship allowance. I used that money to pay to register my business. So that's where I started. And then competitions, of course, I think I've won every competition. Fintech, MTN Apps Challenge, RSTP, Ematfuba Army. I think it's been a journey. It's been a journey of competitions, winning competitions. So I think that to us actually gave us the motivation to actually see that we can actually do this thing. If I'm able to win here, that means I can actually run with this business. So I think that is the basis. And then RSTP, we were incubated with RSTP, and they funded us for our business to grow. And then also the biggest funding we had was with Youth Fund, 100,000 in Malangeni. Shout out to Youth Fund. Thank you.
Yeah.
Truly, I think that really actually helped us and kickstarted what we have been working on.
Yeah.
Yes, I think I would end there.
Incredible stories from the Youth Fund, eh? I think these are the results of a very committed fund in the kingdom, and thank you, Youth Fund, for that. But I think what I want to really focus a light on is the self-funding, the bootstrapping, where you could have used your allowance to buy yourself a pair of sneakers, for instance, or entertain yourself. You went and you registered a company, and you had to commit to that because you've already invested something into it. And joining a competition, especially an international one, not to say a local one is not as important, requires a lot of commitment from you. You must be in order when you go to your pitch or whatever you're submitting. So that is also part of self-funding. And I think in many instances we use the lack of funds as an excuse per se. Otherwise, if we have stories like this, then it goes to show that it's possible, for all of us.